Not legend, but routine. You are not a hero riding a chariot across epic fields. You are a shepherd whose most daring feat is keeping a stubborn goat from slipping into a dry arroyo while the night rolls over the plateau. The constellations drift above you, indifferent to the clang of a bronze sickle or the ache in your shoulder from a day's hard work. If the soft rhythm of a low fire and the muted rustle of wool can ease the day's weariness, feel free to linger a while, perhaps give a quiet like, share a soft comment, or simply let the story slip into the dark like a stone into a still lake. Your thoughts might wander to the distant city of Sardis, where the first gold coins were stamped, or to the stone statues of Cybele watching over the hills, eyes as steady as the stars you watch. And now, as the wind sighs through the steppe grass and the sky deepens to a velvety indigo, let the night guide your steps into the story that begins beneath the ancient heavens. You settle onto the low limestone outcrop that has been worn smooth by countless hooves and the slow tread of shepherds before you. The stone is cool beneath your thighs, its surface speckled with tiny fossilized shells that catch the last amber light of the day and hold it for a moment before releasing it into the dusk. The plateau stretches outward in a gentle sweep, a sea of muted ochre and brown that rolls toward the horizon where the sky meets the earth in a line softened by the distance. A thin veil of smoke rises from the village hearth below, curling upward in lazy spirals that mingle with the scent of dried goat cheese left to cure on a wooden shelf. The cheese carries a faint, salty tang that reminds you of the goat's milk you milked just weeks ago, and it is accompanied by the iron-tanged breath of the sheep huddled at your feet. Their warm exhalations forming small clouds that disappear as quickly as they appear. The sky above is already bruised, a deepening violet that hints at the early signs of Taurus. The great bull whose horns you have watched rise since the Hittite Empire first claimed these lands around 1400 BCE. The constellation's outline is faint, a suggestion of curved light against the darkening firmament, and you can almost feel the weight of those ancient peoples who once traced the same pattern with their eyes and with their stories. The bull's horns seem to hold the memory of chariots and bronze helmets, of a time when the plateau was a borderland between kingdoms, and now they sit, indifferent, above a shepherd who tends only to wool, and wind dot in your hand rests a bronze sickle, its curve familiar and worn. The edge is dulled by years of shearing, a soft sheen of patina covering the metal that once gleamed sharp under the sun. It is a humble relic of the 5th century artisans who first forged such tools for shepherds like you, a reminder that the same simple act of cutting grain or wool has persisted across millennia. You notice with a quiet, almost dry amusement that the sickle's age exceeds the newest roof tile on the village houses, yet it still serves its purpose as reliably as any newer implement. The weight of the bronze is reassuring, a solid counterbalance to the lightness of the evening ere stone altar of Cybele perches on a nearby hill, its massive block of limestone rising like a silent guardian. The altar's surface is pitted and weathered, the stone eyes carved into its front having been smoothed by wind and rain into gentle hollows that seem to stare out over the plateau. You have seen travelers pause before it, offering a small offering of grain or a whispered prayer, and you have watched the same stone witness the rise and fall of empires, the march of armies, and the quiet passing of seasons. Its presence is a quiet anchor, a reminder that the divine and the mundane have long shared this landscape, The wind carries a dry, pine-laden chill, the scent of resin and needle that hints at the harsh winter to come. It brushes against your cheek, thin as a sigh, and you feel the subtle sting of cold on your skin, a sensation that feels both foreign and familiar, as if the plateau itself is exhaling a breath that has been held for centuries. The pine scent is a reminder of the ancient forests that once covered these slopes before they were cleared for pastures, and the chill seems to echo the warning of a distant storm that will later roll across the plain, though now it is only a whisper you breathe in the cool air, feeling it fill your lungs in slow, measured draws. Each inhalation brings with it the faint metallic tang of the sheep's breath, the earthy aroma of the limestone, and the lingering smoke from the hearth. Your heartbeat settles into a rhythm that matches the slow drift of the constellations overhead, a steady thump that seems to synchronize with the distant pulse of the world. The night feels gentle, as if the world itself were leaning back to listen, to pause its endless turning and allow a moment of stillness. Around you, the plateau is alive with the soft sounds of evening. A lone goat bleats in the distance, its voice carrying a note of plaintive longing that is quickly swallowed by the wind. Somewhere farther down the slope, a low metal bell from the village clangs faintly, its tone resonating through the stone and the air, a reminder of the daily rhythms that mark time here. The bell's sound is muted, as if the metal itself is weary of announcing the passage of hours, yet it persists, a small, stubborn echo of human habit. You glance again at the bronze sickle, noting how the light catches a faint glint on its curve, a brief flash that disappears as quickly as the last rays of sun. The tool's surface bears tiny scratches, each one a story of a shearing season, a harvest, a moment when the blade met the wool of a goat or the stalk of a grain. The scratches are not flaws but the accumulated memory of work, a quiet testament to the continuity of labor that has defined this plateau for countless generations. The stone altar of Cybele seems to watch you with its weathered eyes, and you wonder, with a soft, almost imperceptible irony, how many prayers have been whispered to a stone that cannot answer, yet somehow the act of speaking still feels necessary. The altar's silence is a kind of presence, a stillness that mirrors the plateau's own unhurried pace. You feel a faint smile tug at the corner of your mouth, a quiet acknowledgement that the rituals of the past are as much a part of the landscape as the limestone itself. The wind shifts, bringing a brief gust that lifts a few loose stones from the outcrop, letting them tumble down the slope in a soft, muted cascade. The sound is like a distant rain on a tin roof, gentle and unassuming. You watch the stones disappear into the low grass, their movement a reminder that even the most solid things are subject to the pull of time and the breath of the world. As the sky deepens, the first stars begin to pierce the veil of dusk. The Pleiades, a cluster of 7 bright sisters, appear faintly to the east, nudging Taurus toward its apex. Their light is cool and steady, a celestial metronome that has guided shepherds, farmers, and travelers for ages. You feel a kinship with those ancient observers, those who read the sky not on parchment but in the patterns of light, and you let the constellations settle into your thoughts as naturally as the night settles over the plateau. The evening settles like a soft blanket, its folds wrapping the world in a muted hush. The plateau, the village, the stone altar, the bronze sickle, the wind, and the stars all blend into a single, quiet tableau. In this moment, the world seems as steady as the stone under your feet, as unchanging as the ancient tools you hold, and as patient as the night that stretches above you. You find comfort in the calm, a gentle assurance that the day has ended and the night will hold you in its quiet embrace. The night's gentle cadence lulls the mind, and you feel the world's quiet. The night has deepened, and the sky above the plateau spreads itself thin and endless, a dark canvas brushed with the cold fire of the Pleiades. Their 7 sisters sit close together, each a pinprick of pale light that seems to pulse in time with the slow breathing of the earth. You feel the weight of their ancient rhythm, a calendar written not on parchment, but on the very vault of night, the same one the old farmer once spoke of when he told you that the rising of these stars signals the beginning of the spring planting. The thought settles in you like a soft stone, unhurried and inevitable, as if the heavens themselves have agreed to keep time for those who tend the soil. A faint rustle catches your ear, a sound that is both ordinary and oddly conspicuous in the stillness. A lone goat, its coat mottled with the dust of many days, has slipped its tether and is now nibbling on a stray sprig of sage that has managed to push its way through the thin, rocky soil. The animal's small rebellion is no more heroic than the silence of a marble statue in a forgotten courtyard. It is simply a moment of life asserting itself against the constraints of habit. You watch the goat's head bob up and down, the wool on its back catching the faint starlight, each fiber a tiny mirror of the hand-spun cloth your mother wove decades ago. The cloth, now perhaps a ragged shawl hanging in a corner of a modest home, once held the scent of wheat and the faint, sweet perfume of lavender that grew wild on the lower slopes. The goat's movements remind you of the way those threads once slipped through your mother's fingers, a quiet choreography that has long since faded into memory. You sigh, a breath that seems to carry the weight of generations, and step forward with the practiced ease of someone who has spent more nights than days on this plateau. Your hand finds the rope that still clings to the goat's neck, the same coarse twine that your grandfather taught you to tie, its fibers twisted from goat hair in a method that has survived since the Bronze Age. The rope slides through your fingers, a little rough, a little familiar, and you pull gently, coaxing the animal back toward the flock. The goat resists at first, its ears flicking back as if listening to a distant echo of a past that no longer exists, then yields, its eyes softening as it recognizes the rhythm of your voice. You release the rope and it steps back into the herd, its head lowered, its rebellion quelled without a word of reprimand. The moment passes, leaving behind a quiet that feels almost intentional, as if the night itself has taken a breath and held it. The wind shifts, carrying with it a distant clink that reaches your ears like a faint bell tolling from the village of Kamakli. The sound is metallic, resonant, and you recognize it as the echo of a metal bell that hangs in the village square, a relic of the first minted gold coins of Sardis, those bright Lydian pieces from 600 BCE that still linger in local legend. The bell's tone is low, a soft vibration that seems to vibrate through the stone of the hills, reminding you that even in this remote place, the currents of history flow beneath the surface. You think of the stories the villagers tell about those coins, how they glittered in the hands of merchants and were counted in the markets that once bustled near the riverbanks, a reminder that trade and wealth have always found a way to seep into even the most austere corners of the plateau. Your eyes drift down to the staff you lean upon, a simple piece of ash wood that has become an extension of your own body. Its bark is scarred, the result of countless falls, the occasional stumble over hidden stones, and the occasional brush with the sharp edges of the limestone outcrops that dot the landscape. The tip of the staff is worn smooth from the soil, its surface polished by the very earth it has helped you till. You run a thumb along the grain, feeling the faint ridges where the wood once held sap, now dried and hardened. The staff feels reassuring, a quiet anchor that connects you to the land, much like the steady pulse of the ground beneath your feet. It is a tool that has survived through the ages, unchanged in its purpose, even as the empires that rose and fell around you have left only fragments of their grandeur. The stars continue their slow procession across the sky, indifferent yet companionable. Taurus, the great bull, looms on the horizon, its horns already rising, a celestial reminder of the ancient Hittite Empire that first claimed these lands around 1400 BCE. The bull's presence feels both distant and immediate, a symbol of strength that has endured through the ages, just as the limestone outcrop you sit upon has weathered countless seasons. You glance at the stone altar of Cybele perched on a nearby hill, its weathered surface catching the starlight in a way that makes the stone eyes seem to glimmer. The altar has stood silent for centuries, a guardian that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the passage of shepherds, and the quiet prayers of those who have sought its protection. Its presence is a reminder that the divine in this place is less a distant deity and more a constant, patient observer, a soft rustle of grass brushes against your calves, the wind pulling the thin blades into a gentle dance. The scent of the plateau rises with it, dry earth, a faint hint of pine, and the lingering aroma of dried goat cheese that you left near the fire earlier in the day. The cheese, now hardened, still carries the tang of the goat's diet, a mixture of wild herbs and the occasional grain that the villagers feed them. The scent is comforting, a reminder of the simple sustenance that has kept you and your flock alive through harsh winters and scorching summers alike. You think of the bronze sickle that rests in your other hand, its edge dulled by years of shearing. The sickle is a relic of the 5th century artisans who first forged such tools for shepherds like you, its bronze surface bearing the patina of time, the faint greenish hue that forms when metal meets the elements. You run your thumb over the worn edge, feeling the small ridges where the blade has been sharpened and dulled countless times. The sickle, like your staff, is a link between you and the countless hands that have held it before, a quiet testament to the continuity of labor that defines life on this plateau. The night air grows cooler, the pine-laden chill hinting at the harsh winter to come, yet the darkness feels gentle, as if the world itself were leaning back to listen. You inhale deeply, the cool breath filling your lungs, matching the rhythm of your heartbeat to the slow drift of the constellations. The breath is steady, each inhalation a soft sigh, each exhalation a release of the day's lingering heat. The world seems as steady as the stone under your feet, unhurried and patient, a landscape that does not rush but simply endures. A distant owl hoots, its call echoing off the limestone cliffs, a low, resonant sound that seems to mark the passage of time in a way that words cannot. The owl, perched perhaps on a gnarled branch, watches you with unblinking eyes, its feathers ruffling in the night breeze. You feel a quiet kinship with the creature, both of you observers of the night, both moving through the darkness with a purpose that is simple and unpretentious. You settle back onto the outcrop, the stone cool against your back, the night wrapping around you like a soft blanket. The wind carries the faint clink of the village bell once more, a reminder that life continues below, that the villagers are tending to their hearths, grinding barley, and preparing for the days ahead. The sound is a gentle punctuation in the otherwise seamless flow of night, a subtle reminder that even in solitude, you are part of a larger tapestry. Your thoughts drift to the old farmer's story about the Pleiades and the planting season. You consider how the stars have guided countless generations, how the same celestial markers that once directed the movements of ancient caravans now guide your own modest tasks. The constellations, indifferent to human affairs, continue their slow, patient march across the sky, offering a sense of order that feels both ancient and immediate. The goat, now back among its companions, lowers its head to graze, its breath forming small clouds in the cold air. You watch the rhythmic motion, the rise and fall of its chest, the gentle sway of its tail, and you feel a quiet satisfaction in the simple act of guiding it back. The moment is small, almost imperceptible, yet it carries the weight of countless similar evenings stretched across centuries. A faint rustle of leaves draws your attention to a small cluster of sage bushes that cling stubbornly to the rocky ground. Their silvery leaves glisten in the starlight, each one a tiny mirror reflecting the night. You reach out, fingertips brushing the soft foliage, feeling the coolness of the plant, the faint resin that gives it a subtle, earthy perfume. The sage, a plant that has been used for both culinary and medicinal purposes since antiquity, reminds you of the continuity of knowledge passed down through generations, how your grandmother once taught you to crush its leaves and mix them with water to soothe a sore throat. The wind shifts again, this time carrying a faint scent of smoke from the village hearths. The smoke is thin, rising in lazy spirals that blend with the night sky, its aroma mingling with the scent of dried cheese and the faint iron-tanged breath of the sheep huddled at your feet. The smell is comforting, a reminder of warmth and sustenance, of the simple fires that have kept people alive through cold nights for millennia. You glance at the flock, the sheep huddled together, their woolly bodies forming a soft, moving carpet across the plateau. Their bells tinkle faintly with each shift, a gentle music that punctuates the night. The sound is low, almost imperceptible, yet it adds a layer of texture to the silence, a reminder that life continues in small, rhythmic beats. The sheep's presence is a quiet affirmation of your role, a modest duty that ties you to the land and to the generations that have tended these animals before you. The night deepens further, the Pleiades now high above, their light steady and unchanging. You feel the world settle around you, the plateau's vastness wrapping you in a sense of calm that is both humbling and reassuring. The stars, the wind, the goat, the staff, the sickle, all these elements compose a quiet symphony, each note soft, each pause intentional. You breathe in the cool air once more, feeling the rhythm of your heartbeat align with the slow drift of the constellations, a gentle reminder that you are part of something larger, yet intimately personal. In this quiet moment, the world seems as steady as the stone under your feet, as patient as the night sky, as enduring as the tools you hold. The evening settles like a soft blanket, and you find comfort in its calm, allowing the night. You feel the night's breath settle around the limestone outcrop, the cool air wrapping the stone like a thin shawl. The sky above is a deep indigo, speckled with the steady fire of distant stars that have watched countless generations pass. The faint glow of the village hearths below flickers through the darkness, a muted reminder of human warmth far away from the solitude you now occupy. Your bronze sickle lies beside you, its surface dulled by years of shearing, the metal still warm from the day's labor, a relic forged by 5th-century artisans whose hands knew the weight of wool and the rhythm of the seasons. A sudden snap of a twig cracks the quiet, sharp as a whispered warning. From the shadows a fox darts, its coat a russet flash against the dark rocks, eyes glinting like the bronze of your sickle. It pauses, ears pricked, as if measuring the distance between its fleeting presence and the ancient stones that have stood here since the Hittite Empire first claimed these lands. You watch the animal's sleek form disappear between the crags, a brief intrusion that feels both ordinary and oddly ceremonial, as if the night itself were staging a small, silent play. Your hand, still gripping the staff of ash wood, moves instinctively. The staff, scarred by countless falls and the occasional clash with stubborn stone, bears a bark that is rough to the touch, its tip worn smooth from years of digging into the soil. In the sudden motion, the tip catches on a hidden stone jutting from the earth and a thin line of blood beads at the cut on your palm. The wound is modest, a shallow fissure that opens like a quiet sigh, a reminder that even the most tranquil nights hold small bruises. The blood, dark and warm, spreads slowly across the skin, its color a stark contrast against the pale moonlight that filters through the thin veil of clouds. You pause, the world around you holding its breath for a heartbeat. The fox's brief appearance lingers in your mind, a fleeting echo of wildness that seems to mirror the suddenness of the cut. You think of the old remedy your grandmother taught you, a simple poultice of crushed barley mixed with water, a tonic that has been used since the Lydian era to staunch minor bleeds. The memory of her voice, low and steady, comes back as a soft hum. Barley knows the earth. It will calm the wound. There is a quiet irony in the thought that a grain, cultivated for bread and drink, can also serve as a healer, its humble presence a counterpoint to the grander narratives of empires and conquests that have swept across this plateau. You lower your hand to the river that runs down the western slope of the plateau, its water clear as the night sky, moving over smooth stones with a gentle, unhurried murmur. The river has been a constant companion through the seasons, its flow unchanging even as kingdoms rise and fall. You dip your fingers into the cool current, feeling the water's chill travel up your arm, a sensation that sharpens your awareness of the present moment. The river's surface ripples, catching the faint starlight and scattering it like tiny diamonds across the water. You let the river cleanse the cut, the water washing away the bright red of the blood, leaving a pale sheen on the skin. The sensation is both soothing and grounding, the liquid's steady movement echoing the rhythm of your own breath. You gather a handful of barley grains that you have stored in a small woven pouch, the same barley that will later be ground into flour for the village's evening bread. The grains feel rough and slightly warm from the day's sun, each one a tiny capsule of the plateau's fertility. You crush them between your thumb and forefinger, the sound a soft, granular whisper, the grains breaking into a fine, pale powder. Adding a few drops of the river water, you stir the mixture until it forms a thick, gritty paste. The texture is coarse, the barley particles gritty against your skin, a tactile reminder of the dust that settles on the stones and the boots of shepherds who have walked these paths for centuries. You spread the poultice over the cut, the barley paste adhering to the wound like a gentle, earthy bandage. The coolness of the mixture settles over the skin, a subtle, calming pressure that seems to draw the sting of the injury inward. You press lightly, feeling the slight resistance of the wound's edges, then release, allowing the paste to sit undisturbed. The river's scent, faintly mineral, mingles with the earthy aroma of barley, creating a scent that is both fresh and ancient. as if the very air were infused with the memory of countless harvests and the quiet labor of countless hands. The fox, now a distant silhouette against the dark ridge, watches for a moment longer before slipping back into the night, its movement as silent as the centuries that have passed over these hills. Its eyes, briefly catching the moonlight, reflect a world that has known both the roar of armies and the soft rustle of wool. You feel an odd camaraderie with the ancient shepherds who tended flocks under the same stars, their hands also stained with the occasional bruise, their lives marked by the same small, inevitable injuries that remind them of their mortality. The wound, modest as it is, becomes a quiet acknowledgement of your humanity, a small scar that will heal and fade, yet remain a testament to the night's gentle violence. You sit back on the limestone, the stone cool against your back, and let the night sounds settle around you. The distant clink of a metal bell from the village of Kamakli drifts up, a low, resonant tone that seems to mark the passage of time in a world where the sun and stars are the only true clocks. The wind carries a faint scent of pine, dry and sharp, hinting at the approaching winter. It brushes against your cheek, a soft, cool caress that makes the breath in your lungs feel deeper, more deliberate. Your staff rests beside you, its ash wood still warm from the day's use, its bark scarred but sturdy. The bronze sickle lies within arm's reach, its weight a familiar anchor to the earth. You glance at the stone altar of Cybele perched on the nearby hill, its silent stone eyes still watching, a guardian that has seen empires rise and fall, yet remains unmoved by the passage of time. The altar's surface is covered in a thin layer of moss, the green a subtle contrast against the gray stone, a reminder that even the most enduring monuments are softened by nature's slow hand. You think of the ancient calendars written not on parchment, but in the sky, of the Pleiades that will soon climb higher, nudging Taurus toward its apex. The constellations move with a patient indifference, their light traveling across millennia to reach your eyes. Their steady procession offers a sense of continuity, a reminder that the night you now inhabit is part of a larger, unending tapestry. The stars, indifferent yet companionable, seem to keep a quiet vigil over your small wound, over the barley poultice, over the fox's fleeting presence, over the river's endless flow. The night deepens, the air growing still, as if the world itself is holding its breath in reverence for the quiet moments that stitch together a life. You feel the faint throb of the cut, a gentle pulse that matches the rhythm of your heartbeat, a reminder that the body, like the land, heals in its own measured time. The barley paste remains in place, its gritty texture now softened by the night's cool moisture, a small, earthy shield against the sting of the wound. You allow your thoughts to drift, not to the grand narratives of Cyrus or Alexander, but to the simple, enduring acts that define your days. The shearing of wool, the guiding of sheep through the plateau's rocky passes, the sharing of goat's milk with an elder, the quiet humor of an old festival dedicated to Cybele. These moments, stitched together like the threads of a hand-spun cloth, form the fabric of your existence. The wound, modest as it is, becomes a thread in that fabric, a reminder that even the most tranquil nights hold small bruises, and that each bruise, each scar, is part of the larger pattern. The river continues its slow song downstream, its water glinting in the moonlight, a constant undercurrent that has witnessed the rise of the Hittite Empire, the wealth of the Lydians, the march of Persian satraps, and the quiet persistence of shepherds like yourself. You feel a kinship with those who have stood on this same limestone outcrop, who have looked up at the same constellations, who have felt the same cool wind brush their faces. Their lives, though separated by centuries, echo in the simple act of tending a wound with barley, of listening to a fox's fleeting passage, of feeling the stone beneath you. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in the night's cool air, feeling the faint scent of pine and river water mingle with the lingering aroma of dried goat cheese that drifts from the village below. The breath steadies, each inhalation a quiet affirmation, each exhalation a soft release. The wound, though still present, feels less like a threat and more like a gentle reminder of the body's capacity to mend, of the earth's capacity to soothe. When you open your eyes again, the night sky is a tapestry of stars, the constellations moving ever so slowly across the heavens. The fox is gone, the river continues its endless journey, the barley poultice rests on your palm, and the stone altar of Cybele watches in silent patience. The world feels steady as the limestone beneath you, as steady as the rhythm of your own heartbeat. You sit a while longer, letting the night's calm settle over you, the small wound a quiet acknowledgement of your place in this ancient landscape. The healing quietness settles over you like a soft sigh, and you rise from the cool night air and settle once more upon the limestone outcrop that has become your quiet observatory. The first pink threads of dawn are already threading themselves through the thin veil of darkness, pulling the night apart with a gentle insistence. The sky lightens in slow, measured breaths, each hue a soft sigh that seems to echo the rhythm of your own heart. The bronze sickle lies beside you, its surface still bearing the faint patina of the night's chill, the metal cool to the touch, yet somehow warm with the memory of countless shears. You lift it, feeling the weight of centuries in its balanced heft, and let your fingers trace the worn edge that once sliced the golden stalks of wheat under the watchful eyes of Hittite farmers long ago. A thin wind brushes the plateau, carrying with it the faint scent of pine and the distant, earthy perfume of damp stone. It is the same wind that once whispered through the valleys when Cyrus the Great, in 546 BCE, marched his Persian forces across these plains, folding the Anatolian Plateau into the Achaemenid Empire. The thought of those massive armies, their banners snapping in the same breeze, feels absurdly out of place beside the modest rustle of the few sheep that have gathered around you, their woolly bodies huddled together as if to share the last remnants of night's warmth. Their bleats rise and fall in a low, steady chorus, a tiny rebellion against the silence of history that stretches far beyond any single empire below. The village awakens with a sound that is both ancient and intimate. The low, comforting hum of women grinding barley into flour on stone mortars. The rhythm of the pestle against the stone is a steady percussion, a pulse that has kept the community alive through droughts, raids, and the slow erosion of stone walls. You watch a young girl lift a handful of coarse barley, her hands moving with a practiced ease that belies the years of labor that have shaped them. The grain falls back into the mortar with a soft thud, each particle a reminder of the sustenance that has fed generations of shepherds, soldiers, and merchants alike. Your gaze drifts to a small copper hook hanging from a shepherd's belt, glinting faintly in the early light. Its simple curve is a design introduced during the early Hellenistic period, after Alexander's successors, the Seleucids, took control of these lands around 300 BCE. The hook, though modest, is a link between past and present, a tiny artifact that has survived the turnover of empires and the passing of countless seasons. You note how the copper has dulled slightly, the surface bearing the patina of use, yet it still catches the light with a quiet resilience. It is a small, almost invisible testament to the way cultures blend and persist, much like the way the village's mud brick houses echo the construction techniques of the Hittite settlements of the 14th century BCE. Goat, its coat dusted with the same ash that once blackened the hearths of your ancestors, coughs softly and lifts its head toward the rising sun. Its eyes are half closed, as if still dreaming of the night's coolness, and its breath forms a faint cloud that disappears almost as quickly as it appears. You smile, a dry, understated humor flickering in the corner of your mind. The goat's cough is a tiny protest against the inevitable march of time, a reminder that even the most unassuming creatures have their own small dramas. The goat's neck bears a faint scar, a reminder of a past injury that healed long ago, much like the small cut on your palm that you tended weeks before. The irony is quiet, almost invisible, but it settles in the back of your thoughts like a soft stone you stretch, feeling the cold iron of the bronze sickle beside you, its weight a reminder that tools evolve, yet the work remains the same. The sickle's handle, worn smooth by countless grasps, fits comfortably in your palm, as if it were an extension of your own arm. You think of the artisans of the 5th century who first forged such tools for shepherds like you, their hands shaping bronze with a skill that has endured through the ages. The sickle, though now a relic, still serves its purpose, a quiet bridge between the ancient world and the present moment. The plateau's dry summer heat begins to settle in, already promising its own hardships. The sun climbs higher, its light growing brighter and more assertive, painting the stone outcrop in a soft gold that seems to warm the very air. The heat is not yet oppressive. It is a gentle pressure, like the soft press of a hand on a shoulder. You feel the sun's warmth on your skin, a comforting presence that steadies the breath in your chest. The wind, now a mere whisper, carries a faint hint of distant rain, a promise that may or may not materialize, but which adds a subtle complexity to the morning's palette. You glance toward the hill where the stone altar of Cybele stands, its weathered surface catching the early light in a way that makes the stone eyes seem almost alive. The altar has watched empires rise and fall, its silent guardianship a constant through the ebb and flow of human ambition. You remember the stories told by elders about the goddess's festivals, the rituals that once filled the air with incense and song. The altar's presence is a quiet reassurance, a reminder that the world is larger than any single human life, and that the cycles of worship and work have always intertwined. A distant bell from the village of Kamakli rings faintly, its metal tone traveling across the plateau like a soft echo of the past. The bell's sound is a reminder of the first minted gold coins of Sardis, those bright Lydian pieces from 600 BCE, still echoing in local legend. The resonance of the bell, though simple, carries with it the weight of commerce, of trade routes that once crisscrossed these lands, and of the countless hands that have counted, bartered, and exchanged over the centuries. You let the sound linger in your ears, a gentle reminder that even the smallest vibrations can bridge vast stretches of time. You take a slow, deliberate breath, inhaling the cool air that still carries a faint pine-laden chill, a hint of the harsh winter that will soon follow. The breath fills your lungs, steady and measured, and you feel the rhythm of your heartbeat align with the slow drift of the constellations that are beginning to fade in the growing light. The world feels as steady as the stone beneath your feet, as unchanging as the ancient hills that have witnessed the march of countless peoples. The quiet of the morning settles around you like a soft blanket, its fibers woven from the threads of history, labor, and the simple, enduring act of watching the day begin you rise, the limestone outcrop shifting slightly under your weight, and begin the slow walk back toward the village. The path is worn smooth by generations of hooves and feet, each step a testament to the continuity of life on this plateau. As you descend, the sun's rays grow stronger, illuminating the dust that hangs in the air like a fine veil. The dust catches the light, turning each particle into a tiny, fleeting star that drifts down to settle on the ancient stones. You feel a quiet kinship with the countless shepherds who have walked this same route, their hands also stained with the occasional bruise, their eyes also lifted to the sky. The village comes into view, its mud-brick houses perched on the slope, their flat roofs sloping to shed occasional rain. The roofs, built using techniques that date back to the Hittite settlements, bear the faint imprint of generations of hands that have laid each brick, each one a small act of permanence against the shifting sands of time. You hear the low murmur of conversation, the soft clatter of tools, and the occasional laugh that rises like a gentle ripple across a still pond. The sounds blend together into a harmonious chorus, a reminder that life here is a steady, unhurried melody. You pause at the edge of the communal field, where a few villagers are already beginning their morning tasks. A shepherd, his belt adorned with a copper hook similar to the one you observed earlier, greets you with a nod. His eyes, crinkled at the corners, hold a quiet humor that mirrors the dry wit of the elder you once heard speak of the gods. The gods watch over us, but they never fetch water. The comet hangs in the air, a soft chuckle that is as much a part of the landscape as the wind itself. You return the nod, feeling the subtle connection that ties you to these people, to their stories, to their small, enduring jokes. The bronze sickle rests against your side, its weight a comforting presence. You run your thumb along its edge, feeling the faint ridges where the metal has been honed and rehoned over the years. The sickle, though a relic, is still a tool of the present, ready to be used when the season calls for it. You think of the ancient artisans who forged it, their hands shaping bronze with a skill that has survived the rise and fall of empires, and you feel a quiet gratitude for the continuity they have provided. The morning air, now fully bright, carries the scent of fresh barley being ground, the faint aroma of rosemary from the nearby hills, and the subtle, lingering hint of pine from the distant woods. Each scent weaves itself into the tapestry of the day, a sensory reminder that the plateau is alive with the small, persistent details that make up a life. You inhale deeply, feeling the coolness of the air settle in your lungs, and you sense the steady pulse of the land beneath you, a rhythm that has never ceased, even when the world above seemed to change in sudden, dramatic bursts. You turn your gaze once more toward the horizon, where the sun now hangs low, a soft, golden disk that promises the heat of the day yet to come. The plateau stretches out before you, timeless and serene, inviting you to rest once more in its quiet promise. The light settles gently on the stone, the bronze, the copper hook, and the faces of the villagers, each element bathed in a calm that feels both ancient and immediate. You feel the world's quiet promise settle around you, a soft, steady reassurance that the day will unfold as it always has, with patience, with humility. You step down the limestone outcrop, the stone cool beneath the soles of your boots, each footfall echoing a soft thud that seems to count the years the plateau has held its breath. The path that leads to the village is a ribbon of compacted earth, its surface worn smooth by the countless hooves of sheep and the steady tread of generations. Dust rises in thin, lazy spirals as you move, catching the waning light and turning it into a faint, amber haze that clings to the air like a memory. The wind carries a faint scent of dried herbs, wild thyme, a hint of sage, mixing with the ever-present smell of smoke that drifts from the hearths below. It is a scent that feels both ancient and immediate, as if the plateau itself were breathing in rhythm with your own pulse. The houses that appear ahead are low, squat structures of mud brick, their walls a warm, earthen tone that seems to absorb the light rather than reflect it. The bricks, sun-baked and hardened, bear the faint imprint of the hands that shaped them, a technique that reaches back to the Hittite settlements of the 14th century BCE. Their flat roofs slope gently, designed to shed the occasional rain that the plateau rarely grants, and the edges are lined with a thin strip of baked clay that has darkened over time. Small windows, shuttered with wooden slats, let in just enough daylight to illuminate the interior without inviting the harsh glare of the sun. You notice a faint crack in one wall, a hairline fissure that runs like a quiet river across the surface, a reminder that even stone can soften under the weight of centuries. You pause at the doorway of a house where a woman is turning flatbread on a stone slab. The dough, still warm from the communal clay oven, rises slowly, its surface speckled with tiny bubbles that catch the light. The scent of the bread is immediate and comforting, a yeasty perfume that mingles with the faint perfume of rosemary growing in a small garden patch beside the house. The herb, its leaves a deep green, has been cultivated here since the days when the Hittites first learned to coax the wild plant into beds, and now it adds a sharp, piney note to the air, cutting through the richness of the baking bread. You watch as the woman folds the dough, her hands moving with a practiced ease, the rhythm of her motions echoing the slow, steady beat of a drum you can almost hear in the distance. A cup of thin goat's milk waits for you on a low wooden table, its surface mottled with a faint creaminess that catches the light. You lift it, feeling the coolness of the ceramic against your palm, and bring it to your lips. The milk is slightly sour, a reminder of the day's milking, but it carries a clean, earthy flavor that speaks of the goat's diet of sparse grasses and the occasional wildflower. An elder sits opposite you, his beard white as the first snow that will soon blanket the plateau. His eyes are deep, lined with the fine creases of a life spent watching the sky shift from one constellation to the next, and his voice, when he speaks, is low and measured. Each word placed with the care of a shepherd arranging his flock. He tells you of the old festivals dedicated to Cybele, the mother goddess whose statues, carved from the same local limestone that forms the outcrop you once sat upon, still stand guard over the village's crossroads. The statues are weathered, their faces softened by wind and rain, yet they retain an air of solemn watchfulness. The gods watch over us, he says, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, but they never fetch water. The humor in his tone is dry, as parched as the steppe itself, and you feel a quiet laugh rise within you, a soft ripple that joins the distant murmur of the village. It is a joke that acknowledges the gap between divine oversight and everyday toil, a reminder that reverence does not always translate into practical assistance. Around you, other shepherds arrive, each bearing a bundle of wool that tells its own story. One carries a skein dyed with madder root, its deep crimson hue a vivid splash against the muted earth tones of the village. The dye, derived from the roots of a plant that thrives in the riverbeds, has been used since the early Iron Age, when artisans first learned to extract its color for textiles. Another shepherd presents wool left in its natural cream, the fibers soft and warm, a testament to the breed of goats that have grazed these hills for millennia. You compare notes about the health of the flocks, noting the condition of the fleece, the sheen of the wool, the occasional stray that lags behind. A thin lamb catches your eye, its coat sparse, its eyes bright but wary. You recall the occasional famines that struck these lands in the early 5th century BCE, when harvests failed and the plateau's harshness pressed hard upon its inhabitants. The lamb's thinness feels like a quiet echo of those harder times, a reminder that abundance is never guaranteed. The conversation drifts to the rhythm of the day, the way tasks fall into place like stones in a well-laid wall. The women grind barley into flour on stone mortars, their hands moving in a slow, circular motion that produces a soft, rhythmic thud. The sound is low and comforting, a background hum that blends with the distant clatter of a metal bell from the village's small shrine. The bell's tone is clear, its resonance traveling across the plateau, marking the passage of time in a way that feels both ancient and immediate. You watch as a child lifts a small wooden spoon, scooping a portion of the freshly ground barley, the powder spilling like fine snow onto the mortar's surface. The child's cheeks are flushed from the cool air, and a faint smile plays on his lips, a simple pleasure that seems to belong to the very soil itself. You move to the communal well, its stone walls slick with moisture, the water within dark and still. The well has been a gathering place for as long as anyone can remember, a point where stories are exchanged as readily as water is drawn. You lower a bucket, feeling the rope's roughness against your fingers, and pull up a load of clear, cold water. The bucket's metal rim clinks softly as it meets the stone, a sound that reverberates through the quiet morning. You pour a small amount into a shallow bowl, watching the ripples spread outward, each wave a fleeting imprint that soon settles back into stillness. The water's taste is mineral, a reminder of the plateau's ancient geology, and you feel it cleanse the dryness that has settled in your throat from the night's chill. The elder offers you a piece of flatbread, still warm, its surface dotted with tiny charred spots where the fire had kissed it. You break off a fragment, the crust cracking gently, and taste the combination of the bread's yeasty interior and the rosemary's sharp perfume. The flavors mingle, creating a simple yet profound harmony that feels like a small ceremony in itself. You think of the countless meals that have been shared on these very stones, each one a quiet affirmation of survival and community. The bread, the milk, the wool, the stories, all are threads woven together, forming a tapestry that stretches back through the ages, each strand holding its own weight, each knot a point of connection. A soft wind rustles through the narrow alleys, carrying with it the faint scent of incense from a small shrine dedicated to the goddess. The incense, made from a blend of frankincense and myrrh, burns slowly, its smoke curling upward in delicate spirals that disappear into the sky. The smoke's scent is sweet and resinous, a contrast to the earthy aromas that dominate the village. You watch as the smoke rises, its movement graceful and unhurried, mirroring the way the villagers move through their day, purposeful yet unforced. The sight brings a quiet sense of balance, as if the world itself were holding its breath, waiting for the next gentle motion. As the sun climbs higher, its light becomes a soft, golden wash that settles over the mud-brick roofs, turning them a warm amber. Shadows lengthen and recede in a slow, predictable rhythm, each change marking the passage of another hour. You feel the heat on your skin, a gentle warmth that does not scorch but rather embraces, as if the plateau itself were offering a quiet reassurance. The day's tasks begin to take shape. The women will bake more bread, the men will tend the fields, the children will play near the well. Each activity is a note in a larger, unhurried melody, a composition that has been performed for countless generations without a single discordant chord. You stand for a moment at the edge of the village square, looking out over the plateau that stretches beyond the rooftops. The horizon is a soft line where earth meets sky, the distant mountains a muted silhouette against the brightening firmament. The wind carries a faint echo of distant bells, their tones low and resonant, a reminder of the monasteries that once dotted the hills far to the west. The sound is distant, yet it feels close, as if the past were merely a stone's throw away, waiting to be heard if one listens closely enough. In this quiet pause, you feel a sense of belonging settle over you like a fine layer of dust on the stones. It is not a grand, dramatic revelation, but a gentle, steady realization that you are part of a continuum that stretches back to the Hittite kings, through the Lydian wealth, the Persian conquerors, and the Hellenistic rulers who left their marks on the very tools you carry. The plateau has witnessed empires rise and fall, yet the simple acts of sharing bread, milking goats, and tending will remain unchanged. This continuity is a quiet comfort, a reassurance that the world, despite its vastness, holds within it small, enduring rituals that tether you to those who walked these lands before you. You turn back toward the hearth of the house where you first entered, the door closing softly behind you with a muted thud. Inside, the fire crackles faintly, its orange tongues licking the stone walls, casting a warm glow that dances across the faces of those gathered. The elder lifts his cup once more, his eyes meeting yours, and in that brief exchange you sense a shared understanding. That life here is measured not by the sweep of empires, but by the steady cadence of daily tasks, the quiet humor that softens hardship, and the gentle promise that each sunrise will bring another chance to tend the flock, mend a cloak, or simply sit and watch the stars emerge over the plateau. The night's quiet pulse continues, steady and unhurried, and you feel the world's gentle. You stand at the edge of the plateau as the sun slips behind the distant hills, leaving the world draped in a soft, cooling blue. The grass beneath your boots has already begun to thin, the once lush tufts now bowing low under the weight of the night's chill. A faint, dry rustle moves through the ancient oaks that line the outer fringe of the pasture, their gnarled branches reaching like the knotted fingers of old shepherds who once whispered to the wind. The air carries a scent of earth that has been waiting, patient for rain, an aroma that is part mineral, part the faint perfume of wild thyme that clings stubbornly to the stones. You pull the rope of twisted goat hair from your belt, its fibers still warm from the day's work, and feel the familiar texture of the strands, each one a thin, resilient thread that has been spun since the Bronze Age. When mothers first learned to braid the hair of their flocks into cords for tethering and trade, a low rumble rolls across the plateau, distant at first, then growing steadier like the slow, deliberate steps of a caravan making its way through a desert. The sound is not thunder yet, but a warning that the sky is gathering weight. You remember the story your grandfather told you, the one about Alexander's march in 334 BCE, when the Macedonian phalanx and its towering elephants thundered across these same plains. He would say with a half smile that the elephants' trumpeting was louder than any storm, yet the shepherds kept their flocks, indifferent to the clamor of empire. The memory brings a quiet chuckle to your thoughts, a dry irony that the world's grandest ambitions often pass unnoticed by those who tend the land. The clouds begin to thicken, rolling in from the east like a great woolen blanket being pulled over the sky. Their undersides are a bruised violet, the color of bruises that form on the backs of goats after a hard climb. As the first drops of rain tap the dry earth, they sound like soft percussion on a drum made of stone, each patter a gentle reminder that the plateau, despite its stubbornness, is not immune to the whims of the heavens. You watch as the droplets gather on the tips of the ancient oaks, forming tiny beads that cling to the bark before slipping away, leaving faint, dark rings that will dry into the wood like the faint scars of old battles. Your hand moves instinctively to the bronze sickle that rests against your thigh, its surface now slick with a thin film of dew. The sickle, forged centuries ago by artisans who knew the weight of each curve, has seen more seasons than any living soul on the plateau. Its edge, dulled by years of shearing, catches the faint light of the gathering storm, reflecting a muted gleam that seems almost reluctant to shine. You run a thumb over the worn handle, feeling the cold metal beneath your skin, and think of the countless shepherds who have held the same tool, each of them a quiet link in a chain that stretches back to the 5th century craftsmen who first shaped bronze for the purpose of gathering and guarding. The wind picks up, carrying with it the scent of wet earth that rises from the ground like a promise. It brushes past the ruined watchtower that crowns the distant ridge, a skeletal remnant of a Persian satrap's outpost. The stone walls, once solid and imposing, now stand as a crumbling silhouette against the darkening sky, their gaps filled with creeping vines and the occasional flash of a startled bird. You can almost hear the echo of ancient commands that once rang out from its battlements, orders given in a language that has long since faded from the tongues of the people who now tend the same fields. The tower's silence is a reminder that empires rise and fall, but the land endures, patient and unhurried. You turn back to the flock, their woolly bodies huddled together as if seeking warmth from each other's breath. Their bells, small iron clappers that hang from their necks, begin to ring softly in the wind, a sound that resembles distant monastery bells on a hill far away. The rhythm is irregular, as each sheep shifts its weight, but together they create a low, comforting hum that blends with the rain's percussion. You move among them, your steps measured, each footfall deliberate, feeling the dampness of the soil soak into the soles of your boots. The grass, now slick with rain, makes a faint, whispering sound as you brush past, a sound that reminds you of the rustle of ancient scrolls in forgotten libraries of Antioch, where scholars once pored over texts about the very same sky you now watch. You pause beside a young lamb that has strayed a little from the main group, its fleece damp and clinging to its skin. Its eyes are wide, reflecting the storm clouds above, and you can see a faint tremor in its legs, as if the sudden change in weather has unsettled it. You reach for the rope of twisted goat hair, uncoiling a length with practiced ease. The rope feels familiar in your hands, each strand a memory of mothers who taught their children to braid and twist, to turn the simple hair of their goats into something useful, something that could hold a flock together when the wind turned fierce. You tie a gentle knot around the lamb's neck, securing it to a nearby sturdy oak, its bark rough against the rope, a tactile reminder of the continuity of craft that has survived from the Bronze Age to this very moment. The storm intensifies, and lightning forks across the sky, briefly illuminating the ruined watchtower in stark white. For a heartbeat, the silhouette of the tower is revealed in full, its stone arches and broken windows stark against the night. The flash is followed by a low, resonant thunder that rolls over the plateau like a distant drumbeat, reverberating through the bones of the earth. You feel the vibration in your chest, a subtle reminder that even the most solid stone is not immune to the forces that shape the world. Yet as quickly as the lightning appears, it fades, and the clouds begin to part, allowing a thin sliver of moonlight to pierce through, casting a pale glow over the wet grass and the damp stones of the watchtower. You lift your gaze to the heavens, where the stars begin to reappear, their points of light crisp and clear after the storm has washed the sky clean. The Pleiades, still bright, seem to shimmer with a renewed vigor, as if the rain has refreshed their ancient fire. Orion's belt, a familiar trio of stars, stands out against the dark backdrop, a steadfast guide for travelers and shepherds alike since the days when caravans trekked these routes, their camels laden with silk and spices from distant lands. The constellations move slowly, indifferent yet companionable, their presence a quiet reassurance that the world continues its slow, measured dance. You return your attention to the sickle, now resting against your thigh, its bronze surface glistening with droplets of rain. You run your fingers over the worn metal, feeling the coolness of the rain-kissed metal against the warmth of your skin. The tool, though simple, carries the weight of history in its very shape. It is a reminder that the act of cutting, of gathering, of providing, is a thread that ties you to those who came before, from the Hittite artisans who first forged bronze, to the Lydian traders who once bartered barley for gold, to the Persian satraps who oversaw the land, and the Hellenistic shepherds who tended their flocks under the same stars. The wind begins to die down, the rain tapering to a gentle mist that settles over the plateau like a fine veil. The scent of wet earth grows stronger, mingling with the faint aroma of pine that drifts from the distant woods. You inhale deeply, feeling the cool, moist air fill your lungs, each breath a quiet rhythm that matches the slow, steady beat of your heart. The storm has passed, leaving behind a sky washed clean, its colors softened, its light diffused. The stars, now more numerous and brighter, seem to watch over you with a patient, timeless gaze. You look down at the rope of twisted goat hair still coiled in your hand, its fibers darkened by the rain but still strong. You think of the countless times you have used such a rope to bind, to secure, to mend, each not a small act of perseverance against the elements. The rope, like the sickle, is a simple tool, yet it carries within it the echo of generations, the quiet determination of people who have learned to live with the land rather than against it. As the night settles back into its familiar cadence, you feel a gentle satisfaction settle over you, like the soft sigh of the plateau after a storm. The storm's fleeting presence has dissolved into the calm, leaving behind only the quiet hum of the flock, the distant echo of the watchtower's stones, and the steady, reassuring glow of the stars. You sit back upon the limestone outcrop, the cool stone beneath you grounding you, and let the night's gentle rhythm wash over you, a quiet promise that each day will bring its own small challenges and its own quiet rewards. The world, vast and indifferent, continues its slow turning, and you, a humble shepherd, you stand on the familiar limestone outcrop, the cold of winter pressing against the skin of your cheeks like a thin veil of frost. The night is deep, the sky a dark canvas brushed with the sharp, steady points of distant stars. Orion hangs low, its three bright stars forming a belt that has guided travelers across these plains for millennia, a silent ruler of the night that never asks for tribute. The air is crisp, each breath a thin plume that rises and fades, a reminder that even the breath itself is fleeting. Beneath your boots the stone is solid, its surface worn smooth by countless footsteps, the same stone that once bore the hooves of caravans laden with silk and amber, the same stone that has felt the weight of empire and the lightness of a child's laugh. You feel the weight of the night settle around you, gentle as a woolen shawl, and you allow the quiet to fill the spaces between your thoughts. The cold has drawn the breath of the plateau into a thin, steady rhythm, and the wind carries a faint scent of pine sap and dry earth, the perfume of a landscape that has known both drought and flood. In the distance, a low owl hoots, its call echoing off the hills like an ancient hymn, a sound that seems to belong both to the present and to the ages when the Lydians first marked the turning of seasons by the rise of Orion. You remember the story your grandfather told, how the Lydians would watch the first appearance of Orion's belt in the winter sky to signal the beginning of the harvest festival, a celebration that later survived the Roman reorganization of the province of Asia after 133 BCE. The festival was a time when fields were given thanks, when wine was poured, and when the community gathered under the same stars you now watch. The memory feels warm against the chill, a quiet ember that glows beneath the surface of the night. Your cloak hangs from your shoulders, its woolen fibers thick and familiar, the product of your mother's deft hands. The fabric has served you through many seasons, its pattern echoing the woven borders of the ancient walls of Sardis, the capital of the Lydian kingdom. Yet the edge of the cloak is frayed, a thin line of linen exposed where the wool has been worn away by years of use. The tear is small, but it catches your eye as a reminder that even the most trusted garments bear the marks of time. You think of the cut on your palm from weeks ago, the thin line of scar that has healed but still holds a faint memory of blood. Both injuries are modest, both speak of a life lived in steady rhythm, both invite you to mend what has been worn. You reach into the inner pocket of your wool cloak and pull out a simple needle, its shaft carved from bone, the material of a craft that has persisted since the Neolithic era. The bone is smooth where you have held it, the tip honed to a fine point that has been used to stitch together the fabrics of countless generations. The needle feels cool against your palm, a quiet contrast to the warmth of the wool in your hands. You settle into a comfortable position on the stone, the wind whispering through the sparse tufts of grass that cling stubbornly to the outcrop, and you begin the work of repair. The motion is deliberate, each pass of the needle through the fabric, a soft, rhythmic sound that blends with the distant owl's call. The thread you have chosen is a thin strand of dyed wool, its color a muted amber that matches the early light of dawn you have often watched creep over the plateau. As the needle pulls the thread through the torn edge, you feel a subtle satisfaction, a sense of continuity that ties your present actions to the countless hands that have mended before you. The night remains still, the stars moving in their slow procession, indifferent yet companionable. The wind shifts ever so slightly, bringing with it a faint rustle of dry leaves, a sound that could be mistaken for the soft shuffling of a distant herd, though none are near. You notice the faint outline of the stone altar of Cybele on the hill beyond, its weathered surface catching the faint glow of Orion's belt. The altar has stood for centuries, a silent guardian whose stone eyes have watched empires rise and fall, whose presence is a reminder that the divine and the mundane have always shared this landscape. You allow a quiet thought to pass. The gods may watch, but they do not intervene in the small acts of repair that keep a shepherd's life together. The irony is gentle, a dry smile that rests in the back of your mind, acknowledging that while the heavens hold the grand narratives, the ground beneath your feet holds the details. Your hands move with a steady cadence, the needle's tip finding the weave of the wool, the thread pulling tight and then loosening in a controlled rhythm. The frayed edge of the cloak begins to close, the exposed linen disappearing beneath the new stitches, the fabric regaining its integrity. You think of the ancient Lydian artisans who once wove fine textiles for royalty, their looms turning raw fibers into garments that would be displayed in temples and markets. Their skill lives on in the simple act of stitching a torn edge, a quiet echo of a grand tradition reduced to a solitary moment on a cold night. The thought brings a faint, almost imperceptible chuckle, a dry humor that acknowledges the disparity between the grandeur of ancient courts and the modesty of a shepherd's repair work. The owl's hoot repeats, a low, resonant note that seems to mark the passage of time as surely as the turning of the stars. You pause for a moment, listening to the sound reverberate against the stone, feeling the vibration travel through the ground into your feet. The night air carries a faint scent of smoke from the village hearths, a reminder that somewhere below, families are gathering around low fires, sharing bread and stories, their lives intertwined with yours by the simple necessity of tending the flock. The smoke is thin, its tendrils rising in lazy spirals, merging with the starlight and the cold, creating a visual that feels both ethereal and grounded. You inhale the mixture of pine smoke and the sharp bite of winter air, allowing it to fill your lungs, each breath a quiet affirmation of presence. The stitches are nearly complete, the final loop of thread pulling tight, the knot securing the repair. You cut the excess with a small, well-worn flint knife, the blade catching a glint of the moonlight that filters through the thin clouds. The cut is clean, the edge of the cloth now even, the torn edge no longer exposed. You run your fingers over the repaired seam, feeling the slight resistance of the new thread against the old wool, a subtle texture that tells the story of both past and present. The cloak, though still bearing the marks of many seasons, now feels whole again, ready to protect you against the cold that will return with the next dawn. You sit back, the stone beneath you cool and steady, the night still deep around you. The stars continue their slow march, Orion's belt a steadfast guide, the Pleiades a distant cluster that will soon signal the arrival of spring. The world feels vast and unhurried, each element moving at its own measured pace. The quiet of the plateau wraps around you like a soft blanket, the kind that has covered generations of shepherds, the kind that has witnessed the rise of the Lydian kingdom, the spread of Roman administration, the march of Persian armies, and the quiet persistence of daily life. In this moment, you sense a gentle continuity, a thread that runs through the fabric of history, as surely as the thread you have just sewn. A faint rustle in the grass catches your attention, a small movement that could be a mouse or a stray wind. You watch it disappear into the darkness, its presence brief and unnoticed, much like the many small moments that compose a life. The night remains unbroken, the wind still whispering through the ancient oaks that dot the plateau, their branches bare and skeletal against the sky. You feel the weight of the cloak on your shoulders, the repaired edge a quiet testament to your own resilience, a small act of care that mirrors the larger cycles of planting and harvest, of empire and peace. The owl calls once more, a final note that seems to seal the night, a low, resonant sound that fades into the distance. You let the sound linger in your mind, a gentle reminder that the world continues to speak in its own language, one of wind, stone, and starlight. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the cool night air brush your face, the stone beneath you steady and unchanging. In the darkness, you sense a promise, not of grand deeds, but of simple continuity, to mend, to tend, to listen, to endure. The night holds you in its quiet embrace, and you settle into its rhythm, the repaired cloak a soft, familiar weight, the stars above a steady, patient audience. The night deepens, the wind softens, and the plateau rests beneath a sky that has watched countless winters come and go. You remain still, the breath of the earth rising and falling in a slow, measured cadence, the quiet of the world a gentle lullaby. In this calm, you find a quiet satisfaction, a sense that the small work you have done is part of a larger, unhurried tapestry, each stitch a quiet note in the endless song of the Anatolian Plateau. The darkness holds you gently, and you allow yourself to be carried by its stillness, the promise of tomorrow. You rise before the first sigh of sunrise, the air already holding the faint perfume of thawing earth. The night's chill still clings to the stones of the limestone outcrop where you spent the previous evening, but the darkness has softened, as if the plateau itself is exhaling after a long, patient wait. Your breath forms a thin veil that drifts away on a breeze, scented with damp moss and the distant hint of pine, a reminder that the harsh winter you felt in the wind's dry bite has begun to loosen its grip. The bronze sickle you keep at your side rests against the cool stone, its surface darkened by the night's dew, the edge still dulled by years of shearing, but somehow more reflective in the early light, catching the first glints of dawn like a quiet memory of past harvests. You step down the slope, the stone path beneath your feet worn smooth by generations of hooves and sandals. Each step is a soft thud, a muted percussion that blends with the occasional rustle of dry grass. The village below is already stirring, the low hum of women grinding barley into flour on stone mortars rising like a gentle chant. The sound is steady, a comforting rhythm that has accompanied countless mornings since the Hittite settlements first laid mud brick foundations on these hills. You pause for a moment, listening to the mortar's grind, noting how the grain dust settles like fine ash on the surrounding walls, a quiet echo of the hearth fires that have long smoked the same air you now breathe ahead. The communal field stretches out, a broad swath of earth that has lain fallow through the last winter's bite. The soil, dark and fragrant, holds the promise of new life. It is a patchwork of small ridges left by the previous season's plow, each line a faint scar that will soon be smoothed over by the fresh furrows you are about to cut. The field's edge is lined with low, wiry shrubs that have survived the cold, their leaves a muted green that seems to whisper of resilience. You can feel the subtle tension in the air, a quiet anticipation that mirrors the steady beat of your own heart, as if the land itself is waiting for the first touch of the oxen-drawn plow. The wooden plow you will use is simple, its beam hewn from oak, the grain of the wood still visible in the sunlight that filters through the thin clouds. Its design has not changed since the early Iron Age, when the first iron-tipped shares began to replace stone, yet the basic shape remains the same, a testament to the practicality that has endured through centuries of empire and trade. You run a hand along the smooth surface, feeling the coolness of the wood, the faint roughness where the iron fittings have been hammered into place. The iron, though modest, catches a stray ray and glints briefly, a small reminder that even the humblest tools can bear the weight of history. You take a moment to straighten the plow's beam, aligning it with the faint furrows already etched into the earth. The motion is deliberate, each adjustment a quiet dialogue between you and the instrument. The ash wood of your staff, scarred from countless falls, leans against the plow's handle, its tip worn smooth by the soil. It feels reassuring, as if the land itself is offering a steady pulse beneath your palm. You lift the plow, feeling the weight settle into your shoulders, the balance familiar from years of practice. The oxen, tethered nearby, shift their weight, their breath forming small puffs in the cool air. Their eyes are calm, reflecting the same patient endurance you have cultivated over a lifetime of shepherding. As you begin to pull the plow forward, the soil yields with a soft sigh, the sound reminiscent of the rustle of ancient scrolls in forgotten libraries of Antioch. The furrow opens smoothly, a clean line that disappears into the horizon, each turn of the wheel a measured beat in the day's slow rhythm. The earth, dark and fragrant, releases a faint scent of damp loam, a perfume that mingles with the lingering aroma of the goat cheese you carried from the village. The cheese, still warm from the night storage, leaves a faint tang on your tongue, a reminder of the simple sustenance that has kept you and your flock through harsher seasons. While you work, a traveler appears on the edge of the field, his silhouette framed against the rising sun. He wears a cloak dyed with indigo, a color that arrived on these plains through trade routes that linked Anatolia to the Persian Gulf in the 4th century BCE. The cloth is fine, its weave tight, yet the edges are frayed where the road has worn them. He carries a wooden staff of his own, its tip carved into a simple spiral, a design that has persisted since the Neolithic era. His presence is quiet, his steps measured, as if he respects the land's tempo. He offers a nod, a brief acknowledgement that you return with a small smile, the gesture as understated as the distant clink of a metal bell you once heard from Kamakli. He speaks in a low, measured tone, his words carrying the faint accent of distant markets. He tells you of cities beyond the plateau, of bustling bazaars where spices mingle with the scent of fresh figs, of caravans that cross deserts carrying silk and glass. His stories are not grand tales of conquest but modest observations, each sentence a gentle ripple on the surface of the day. You listen, the wind carrying his voice across the field, and you feel a quiet kinship with the countless travelers who have passed these hills, each leaving a faint imprint on the collective memory of the plateau. In return, you share a modest portion of your goat cheese, its texture crumbly yet creamy, a simple barter that echoes the ancient markets of Sardis where cheese, barley, and wool were exchanged under the watchful eyes of merchants. The cheese passes from your hand to his, the exchange smooth, the transaction unremarkable yet rooted in a tradition that stretches back to the Lydian era, when coins first clinked in the hands of traders. He offers you a handful of barley in exchange, the grains glinting amber in the light, a reminder of the staple that has fed generations of shepherds and farmers alike. You accept, feeling the weight of the barley in your palm, the grains cool and slightly rough, a tactile link to the cycles of sowing and reaping. The day progresses, the sun climbing higher, its heat gentle at first, then slowly asserting itself. The light becomes brighter, casting sharp shadows across the field, the furrows now a series of dark lines against the lighter earth. The wind picks up, carrying with it the faint scent of wild rosemary that grows among the ruins of the old Persian satrapy, its aromatic leaves brushing against the stone foundations. The rosemary's perfume is sharp, a contrast to the softer earthiness of the soil, and it reminds you of the way the plateau's flora adapts, thriving even among the crumbling remnants of past empires. You pause for a moment, wiping the sweat from your brow with the back of your hand. The skin there is warm, the sweat salty, a small, honest reminder of the effort you are putting into the work. You glance at your wool cloak, now draped over a nearby rock. Its frayed edge, which you mended weeks ago under Orion's belt, still shows the faint stitch lines, the needle's bone tip still embedded in the fabric. The cloak's pattern, woven by your mother's deft hands, mirrors the borders of the ancient city walls of Sardis, a subtle echo of the past that now protects you from the cooling breeze that begins to stir as the sun reaches its zenith. The traveler, having rested his cloak against a stone, begins to help. He lifts the plow's beam with a steady hand, his movements efficient but unhurried, as if he has known this rhythm for many seasons. Together, you pull the plow deeper into the earth, the oxen's hooves thudding softly against the ground, their breath forming small clouds that rise and fade. The collaboration feels natural, a quiet partnership forged by the shared purpose of turning the soil. There is a subtle irony in the fact that a man who has traveled far beyond the plateau now finds himself working the same earth that has sustained his ancestors for millennia, his foreign cloak now dusted with the same fine particles that cling to your own hands. As the field fills with furrows, the sun begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, the light turning a warm amber that softens the edges of the landscape. The shadows lengthen, stretching across the rows like the quiet fingers of an old storyteller reaching out to touch each line of a tale. The wind eases, the earlier gusts giving way to a gentle sigh that rustles the wheat stalks already sprouting at the field's edge. The scent of fresh earth mingles with the faint aroma of distant hearth fires, a comforting blend that seems to cradle the day in a soft embrace. You take a moment to look back at the field you have helped shape. The furrows are neat, each one a quiet promise that the seeds you will soon sow will find a home in this fertile ground. The work feels complete, not in the sense of finality, but in the sense of a cycle that has been honored. The bronze sickle, still resting against the stone, catches the last rays of the sun, its surface glowing faintly, as if acknowledging the day's labor. The staff leans against the plow, its bark scarred yet sturdy, a silent witness to the passage of time. The traveler gathers his belongings, his indigo cloak now speckled with dust, the color dulled but still vivid against the fading light. He offers a final nod, a quiet gratitude for the shared work, and you return the gesture, feeling a small, unspoken respect for the way his journey has intersected with yours. He departs along the same path he arrived, his footsteps fading into the soft earth, leaving behind only the faint imprint of his presence. You stand alone for a moment, the field now quiet except for the occasional chirp of a lark perched on a distant stone. The wind carries a faint scent of wet earth, a promise of rain that may come later in the season, a reminder that the plateau's weather can shift as abruptly as the fortunes of empires. Yet now, in this stillness, there is no urgency, only a gentle, steady pulse that matches the rhythm of your own breathing. You turn back toward the village, the path winding through the low oaks whose leaves whisper softly in the evening breeze. The mud brick houses appear as silhouettes against the dimming sky, their flat roofs still warm from the day's sun, the stone walls holding the faint imprint of the day's work. As you approach, the low hum of the women's grinding resumes, a comforting backdrop to the quiet steps you take. The scent of fresh barley mingles with the lingering perfume of rosemary, creating a layered aroma that feels both familiar and timeless. Reaching the communal well, you pause to cup the cool water in your hands, the chill spreading through your fingers, a sensation as familiar as the first breath of dawn. You drink, feeling the water cleanse the dust from your skin, the simple act grounding you once more. The well's stone walls are worn smooth by countless hands, each one leaving a faint trace of its own story, a silent record of the generations that have drawn sustenance from this same source. The day's work settles into your muscles, a gentle ache that reminds you of the effort you have put into the earth, but also of the satisfaction that comes from tending to the land that has always been there, patient and unassuming. You feel the weight of the barley you have traded, the grains warm against your palm, a small, tangible proof of the exchange that has taken place. The wool cloak on your back rests comfortably, its repaired edge now secure, the stitches holding firm like the resolve of the people who have walked these hills before you. As the sun slips below the horizon, the sky deepens into a soft indigo, the first stars of the evening beginning to appear, their light gentle and steady. The night's coolness settles over the plateau, a quiet blanket that eases the lingering warmth of the day. You stand for a moment, looking out over the field now bathed in twilight, the furrows darkening, the earth holding its breath in anticipation of the seeds that will soon be sown. The plateau, timeless and serene, seems to exhale with you, its rhythm matching the slow, steady beat of your heart. You turn toward the village once more, the path leading you back to the familiar limestone outcrop where you began. The stone under your feet feels cool, its surface worn smooth by countless footsteps, each one a quiet testament to the continuity of life here. You settle onto the outcrop, the bronze sickle resting beside you, its dull edge catching the faint glow of the emerging stars. The wind brushes past, carrying with it the distant echo of a low hymn to Cybele, a soft murmur that drifts through the night like a lullaby. In this moment, the day's labor, the shared work with a traveler, the barter of cheese and barley, and the simple act of turning the soil all blend into a single, unhurried breath. The plateau's ancient stones, the tools forged centuries ago, and the quiet resilience of the people who tend this land converge into a gentle, steady presence. You feel the world's quiet promise settle around. You settle once more upon the familiar limestone outcrop, the stone cool beneath your thighs, its surface worn smooth by countless evenings like this. The night has deepened into a velvety black, and the harvest moon hangs low, a full disk of pale light that spreads a silvery sheen across the plateau. The moon's glow catches the edges of the ancient cairns that dot the horizon, turning the scattered stones into faint silhouettes, as if the landscape itself were a quiet museum of forgotten steps. Your cloak, the one your mother wove with her deft hands, rests over your shoulders. The stitches you placed with the bone needle weeks ago hold firm, each tiny knot a reminder of the care that steadies a life lived in rhythm with the land. The linen lining, once exposed by the frayed edge, now lies hidden beneath the wool, its smoothness a subtle contrast to the roughness of the outer fabric. You run a finger along the seam, feeling the slight give of the thread, a small, private assurance that the garment will endure the coming chill. The bronze sickle, its surface darkened by years of use, lies beside you on the stone. The metal has taken on a soft patina, the dull sheen catching the moonlight in a way that makes the blade appear almost like a relic, a quiet echo of the artisans who first forged such tools in the 5th century. You lift it gently, feeling the weight balanced in your palm, the familiar heft a grounding presence. The edge, though no longer as sharp as it once was, still bears the memory of countless shears, each cut a quiet contribution to the rhythm of the seasons below. The village spreads out in a gentle hush. Smoke curls lazily from the communal ovens, a thin ribbon of scent that mingles with the cool night air. The smell of fresh flatbread, still warm from the clay hearth, drifts upward, its yeasty aroma softened by the faint perfume of rosemary that clings to the stone walls. The rosemary, a plant that has survived the rise and fall of empires, releases its resinous fragrance in the night, a reminder that some things persist unchanged. A modest feast is taking place in the central courtyard, the low stone walls illuminated by a circle of oil lamps whose flames flicker with a steady, unhurried rhythm. The flatbread is laid out on a broad wooden board, its crust golden and crisp, the interior soft and airy. Beside it, a pot of goat stew simmers, the broth thick with the earthy flavor of slow-cooked meat, punctuated by the occasional pop of herbs, thyme, sage, and a few leaves of wild mint that have been gathered from the slopes. The stew's steam rises in thin ribbons, catching the lamplight and turning it into a fleeting veil of vapor. A modest cup of wine is passed around, its deep amber hue catching the moonlight as it reflects off the polished surface of the cup. The wine, made from grapes cultivated in the valleys that slope down toward the river, carries a faint note of the ancient Phrygian presses that first coaxed juice from the fruit centuries ago. Its taste is neither overly sweet nor sharply acidic. It rests on the palate like a quiet conversation, a small indulgence that feels appropriate for the occasion. Children move among the adults, their laughter soft and intermittent, like the rustle of dry grass in a gentle breeze. They chase fireflies, the tiny lights blinking in the darkness, each glow a fleeting star that mirrors the heavens above. Their small hands grasp at the air, trying to capture the light, only to watch it slip away, a simple game that feels both timeless and fleeting. The firefly's luminescence adds a delicate sparkle to the night, a subtle reminder that even the smallest creatures contribute to the tapestry of the evening. You watch a group of women knead dough on a low stone table, their fingers moving in a practiced rhythm, the motions smooth and unhurried. The dough, softened by the cool night air, begins to take shape, the beginnings of another batch of flatbread that will feed the village tomorrow. Their murmured conversation drifts toward the old festivals dedicated to Cybele, the mother goddess whose statues, carved from the same limestone that forms the outcrop, stand guard at the crossroads. An elder's voice, low and measured, offers a dry observation. The gods watch over us, but they never fetch water. The comment lands with a quiet chuckle, the humor as dry as the steppe itself, a small acknowledgement of the gap between divine reverence and everyday toil. Your thoughts drift to the wound on your palm, the thin line of scar tissue that has healed over the weeks since the fox's sudden appearance. The cut, once a bright red bead of blood, now resembles a faint, pale mark, its edges softened by the barley poultice your grandmother taught you to make. The memory of that simple remedy, a mixture of crushed barley and cool river water, brings a quiet gratitude for the knowledge passed down through generations. The wound's closure feels like a quiet affirmation that the body, like the land, can mend itself given time and care. The hymn to Cybele rises from the courtyard, a low, melodic chant that seems to float on the night air. The voices are steady, their tones resonant but not overpowering, each syllable a gentle vibration that settles into the stone walls. The melody is simple, its repetition a soothing pattern that mirrors the cycles of planting and harvest. As the chant continues, you feel a subtle vibration in your chest, as if the song were a pulse that aligns with the heartbeat of the plateau itself. A soft wind brushes across the outcrop, carrying with it the faint scent of distant pine and the cooler breath of the night. The wind's touch is light, almost imperceptible, yet it carries a sense of movement, a reminder that even in stillness, the world is never truly static. The limestone beneath you seems to exhale with each gust, the stone's pores releasing a faint mineral scent that blends with the night's other aromas. You turn your gaze back to the moon, its surface pocked with ancient craters, its light steady and unchanging. The harvest moon, a symbol that has guided countless generations of farmers, now watches over the village's modest celebration. Its illumination casts long shadows that stretch across the fields, the silhouettes of the stone walls, and the outlines of the people gathered below. The moon's presence feels like a quiet guardian, its glow a soft blanket that covers the world in a gentle, silvery hue. The night deepens further, the stars shifting in their eternal march across the sky. Orion's belt, already familiar from earlier evenings, glints with a steady brilliance, its 3 stars aligned like a simple, reliable compass. The Pleiades, still visible, twinkle faintly, their light a reminder of the ancient calendar that once dictated the planting seasons. The constellations move slowly, indifferent yet companionable, their presence a silent testimony to the passage of time. You feel the cool stone beneath you, the weight of the bronze sickle at your side, the repaired cloak draped over your shoulders, and the soft hum of the hymn blending with the night's natural sounds. The world feels balanced, each element in its place, each breath a measured rhythm that matches the slow drift of the constellations. The wound on your palm, now a faint line, is a quiet testament to the small injuries that accompany a life lived close to the earth, and its healing mirrors the way the plateau itself recovers after each storm a distant owl calls, its hoot echoing against the stone walls, a solitary voice that punctuates the night's calm. The sound is brief, then fades, leaving behind a lingering sense of continuity, as if the owl's call were a small thread woven into the larger tapestry of the evening. The owl, a creature that has watched over these hills for countless generations, adds its own quiet note to the chorus of night. You sit a while longer, allowing the night's cadence to settle into your thoughts. The moonlight, the hymn, the scent of rosemary, the taste of wine, the feel of the repaired cloak, all blend into a single, gentle impression that lingers like a soft sigh. The plateau stretches out before you, timeless and serene, its surface a quiet canvas upon which the stories of Hittite kings, Lydian merchants, Persian conquerors, and Hellenistic travelers have been lightly brushed. The harvest moon continues its slow journey across the sky, its light unwavering, its presence a steady promise that the cycles will turn again. The night, with its subtle threats and quiet comforts, holds you in a gentle embrace, inviting you to rest within its calm. The soft glow of the moon steadies your thoughts, and the first light of morning arrives as a thin, hesitant ribbon of pale gold that barely lifts the night's veil, and you feel the world holding its breath, as if waiting for the day to announce itself in a whisper rather than a shout. You rise from the limestone outcrop where you have spent the night, the stone still cool against your back, its surface worn smooth by countless footsteps that have traced the same path over centuries. The wind that brushes the plateau at this hour is gentle, carrying with it the faint scent of time and the lingering chill of nighttime frost that has not yet surrendered to the sun. You pull the repaired wool cloak tighter around your shoulders. The stitches you placed under Orion's watch still hold, their tiny knots a quiet testament to the care you have given to something that once seemed as fragile as a breath in winter. Your flock stirs slowly, the sheep's bells chiming a soft, irregular rhythm that resembles the distant toll of a monastery's bells on a hill far away. Their movements are deliberate, each animal aware of the thin line between the safety of the herd and the open expanse beyond. You guide them forward with a practiced hand, the rope of twisted goat hair slipping through your fingers, its texture familiar from the countless evenings you have tied and retied it, a craft passed down through mothers since the Bronze Age. The rope's fibers, rough yet resilient, seem to echo the plateau itself, hard, unyielding, but capable of holding together the small things that matter. The path you follow winds past the ruins of the old Persian satrapy, a cluster of stone foundations now half engulfed by wild rosemary and the occasional sprig of thyme that has claimed the cracks as its own. The stone blocks, once arranged with the precision of an imperial administration, now lie in irregular piles, their edges softened by wind and time. You pause for a moment, allowing the sunrise to catch the tops of the ruined walls, turning the weathered limestone a soft amber that makes the ancient stones look less like relics of conquest and more like the bones of a long-forgotten animal resting in the earth. A dry chuckle rises in you, a quiet acknowledgement that even the grandest empires eventually become part of the landscape they once tried to dominate. A small spring bubbles nearby, its water clear and cold, reflecting the early light in a way that makes it seem as though the sky itself has been poured into a shallow basin. You kneel at the edge, cupping the water in your hands, feeling the chill travel up your forearms, a sensation as familiar as the first breath of dawn you have taken on this plateau. The water tastes of stone and mineral, clean and unadorned, and you drink slowly, letting the coolness settle in your throat. The act of drinking from the spring feels ritualistic, a small communion with the land that has sustained you and your ancestors for generations, a reminder that the same source has quenched the thirst of shepherds, soldiers, and travelers alike. As you rise, the villagers begin to appear along the path, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of sunrise, each expression calm, each movement measured. Their eyes meet yours briefly, offering nods that convey more than words, a shared understanding of the rhythm that governs life here, a rhythm that has persisted through Hittite kings, Lydian wealth, Persian conquerors, and Hellenistic rulers. A woman carries a basket of freshly baked flatbread, the crust still crisp from the clay oven, the scent of rosemary and wheat mingling in the cool air. An elder leans on a wooden staff, its bark scarred from years of use, and offers you a small smile that seems to carry a dry humor. "The gods watch over us, but they never fetch water," he says, echoing a sentiment you have heard before, now softened by the morning light. You hand over the bundles of wool you have gathered, each skein a testament to the season's labor, the fibers still warm from the bodies that produced them. The wool is a mixture of natural cream and the occasional strand dyed with madar root, colors that have faded slightly under the sun but retain their earthy hue. The villagers receive the wool with quiet gratitude, their hands moving deftly to sort and store the material for the coming months. In return, they give you a warm loaf of flatbread, its crust still crisp, the interior soft and fragrant, a simple exchange that feels as ancient as the barter systems of Sardis's markets. The bread's taste is comforting, the rosemary's perfume lingering on your tongue, a reminder that even the smallest gestures can bind a community together. You turn back toward the outcrop, the plateau stretching out before you in a tableau of muted greens and browns, the grass still damp from the night's dew. The sun climbs higher, its light growing steadier, painting the world in soft gold that seems to settle into the crevices of stone and the folds of your cloak. The wind, now a little warmer, carries with it the distant sound of a low hymn to Cybele, its melody drifting from the village's small shrine where a statue of the mother goddess watches over the crossroads. The hymn is not loud, it is a gentle hum that blends with the rustle of leaves, a subtle reminder that the divine is present, not in grand proclamations, but in the quiet continuity of daily life. You settle once more onto the familiar limestone, feeling the stone's coolness against your skin, the same stone that has supported countless generations of shepherds, soldiers, and travelers. The plateau, timeless and serene, seems to breathe with you, its vastness a quiet companion rather than an indifferent void. The sunrise settles into a soft, welcoming warmth, its light spreading slowly across the horizon, touching the tops of distant hills and the edges of the ruined watchtower, now a silhouette against the brightening sky. You close your eyes for a moment, allowing the warmth to seep into your bones, the sound of the flock's bells, the distant hymn, and the soft murmur of the village to blend into a single harmonious lull. In this moment, the world feels balanced, each element in its place, each breath a measured rhythm that mirrors the slow, unhurried pulse of the plateau itself. The day begins without fanfare, without the clamor of distant wars or the urgency of distant markets. It begins with the simple, steady cadence of life that has persisted through ages, a cadence that you have learned to hear and to follow. The stone beneath you, the wind on your face, the scent of rosemary and fresh bread, the soft glow of sunrise, all combine to create a quiet promise that the world will continue, gently and persistently as it always has. You open your eyes fully now, taking in the full sweep of the landscape, the way the light catches the edges of the ancient stones, the way the flock moves as a single, breathing organism. The promise you feel is not one of grand destiny, but of small, enduring moments. The next sunrise, the next harvest, the next quiet conversation over a shared loaf. The plateau stretches out, timeless and serene, inviting you to rest once more, to let the day's gentle rhythm settle into your bones. The sunrise settles into a soft, welcoming warmth, and you feel the world's quiet